Hi, my name's Vince Sheehan, and today I'd like to talk about Beethoven's 7th Symphony in A major, Opus 92. And I'd like to go through this marvellous work, exploring its structure, because I do believe that if you have some understanding of how music's put together, particularly classical music, it can greatly aid our appreciation and enjoyment of it. So hopefully this video will be of some use to you if you are interested in this piece. Beethoven wrote it between 1811 and 1812. It was premiered on the 8th of December 1813 in Vienna. It was a charity concert for the soldiers wounded in the Battle of Hanau and part of the Napoleonic Wars. And of course Beethoven had a kind of history with Napoleon, of course, with the 3rd Symphony and maybe the 5th as well. And this symphony was a resounding success. The second movement, the Allegretto, was encored, and of course that movement in particular is, heard in countless films and adverts, etc. ever since. Actually, on the premiere, it was performed with Beethoven's Wellington Symphony, which isn't really a symphony, but it's a kind of militaristic kind of showpiece, and that almost stole the show from this symphony. But the 7th Symphony has is just regarded as one of the greatest achievements of Beethoven, even himself regarding it as one of his very best works. And other people agree. And what's great about this symphony is the sheer joie de vivre and this exuberance and bristles with energy, this symphony, and full of dance rhythms. Wagner famously said it's the apotheosis of the dance, and even when you get to the finale, that thrilling finale, it's got this kind of stamping, almost folk energy to it. So yeah, great symphony, and begins with a movement in sonata form with a lengthy introduction. The introduction really is an alternation of 2, maybe 3 ideas, very much in the vein of the 2nd and 4th Symphony introductions, but perhaps on a larger scale here. So we begin like this. I love those triadic ideas, almost like these mighty bells pealing out. Wonderful stuff. And then we have the second idea, these semiquavers, first heard on the violins. Da, da. Da, da. And then the seconds do come back with that bell-like triad. Etc. So we've got now a combination of that da, 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 with those scales, those rising scales. Then we have a new idea, perhaps the first nod to a dance rhythms, a slightly folky feel to this. Goes like this in the oboes first. Then the violins come in with that tune as well. And then basically for the rest of the introduction, those three ideas are mixed up into this wonderful, majestic mix. And then we come to the first subject of this sonata form movement. And we have this wonderfully dancing rhythm. Before we have the first subject on the flute. There's this rather wonderful drone-like folk music feel to this first subject. That's what makes this symphony so special, I think. It seems so unpretentious, so kind of earthy. Such a wonderful tune. A real kind of almost hornpipe feel to it. And it just skips along, and then we have this fortissimo climax, the whole orchestra coming in, playing this marvellous melody with the horns rasping away. This tutti is actually the beginning of this very long transition to the second subject. You sense the harmony changing here. We're moving into the kind of minor mode and eventually hit the second subject, which is this charming idea, rather like fanfares. And then as soon as that's stated, Beethoven does one of his tricks where he pulls the rug under our feet. Down to C major from E major, and then we have this wrench back to E major via this pianissimo idea. Dum da da dum, dum da 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 da. And we're back in E major, and we have a brief Codetta based on that first subject. Etc. Now, more often than not, the exposition might be repeated here, but then eventually we get to the development section. And the development section is just characterised by that dance rhythm. Dum da da dum da da dum da da dum da da dum da da. All the way through we hear it. We begin in C major in development. And we hear that idea based on the first subject passed around the strings in this contrapuntal way, before we hear these mighty climaxes. And we have this kind of these locking of horns. Bam ba bum, bam ba bum, bam ba bum. Then after these peaks, this dum da da dum da da dum da da, is developed further. We hear motifs of that passed around the orchestra in this polyphony, and that swells to this one of the greatest moments in the symphony, where we have this. Isn't that absolutely thrilling? I love that moment. And then eventually, sure enough, we can feel it coming, we come back to the first subject. That joyous melody, this time in the first violins, perhaps somewhat swamped out by the rest of the orchestra. Quite a difficult passage, I think, to get the balance right. When we were expecting that big fortissimo restatement of the theme, of the transition in the exposition, but then Beethoven does something masterful. The music just seems to suspend in the air, and we were left with the winds playing an exquisite variation on that first subject, which is forming this new transition. Surely one of the most beautiful transitions ever penned in a symphony, in my opinion. Something about that passage, I think, it's just so evocative of kind of the forests of, I don't know, of Germany or something. I just find it so beautiful and so hauntingly poignant. I don't know what it is about that passage. I think it's absolutely beautiful. We then get the second subject. We have the Codetta, and then we have a marvellous Coda, beginning pianissimo, again with that rhythm. Dum, da, da, dum, da, da, da. I think there's a passage here which I think Berlioz is very influenced by, and is the first movement of his Symphonie Fantastique, the fortissimo climax at bar 423. Something about that climax reminds me of Berlioz, or Berlioz reminds me of this rather. The second movement, the Allegretto, is one of those pieces which is instantly recognisable outside of the symphony. It's always been very popular, always encored in the earliest performances, including the premiere. And it's one of those pieces that really strikes a chord deep within the human heart. There's something about the melancholy in this music, but also a sense of stoicism as well, I think, in it as well. Something perhaps of the suffering we all go through as humans is encapsulated in this music, which is so beautiful in its tragedy. To sum it up in its form, I guess it's a sonata rondo movement. And the main idea that keeps coming back, of course, is this tune. So that's the main theme, and every time that's repeated, that stirring theme is varied. And when we reach the climax in this first A section, I love the the counter lines in the first violin part. We have so wonderful. You know, Beethoven, it really leans on that major minor juxtaposition with that violin line. Really beautiful. We then have a B section in A major, the tonic major, far more relaxed, far more genial. Underneath these triplets, which the main gist of the melody goes like this. A major. Then the clarinet. Charming Arcadian music, trouble free, but then ineluctably we're drawn back to the A section again with that tragic melody, with some more variations on it. This time with the addition of this pizzicato passages. But then we have this fugal development of that idea, which I call section C. A really stunning moment in this symphony. We then brought to a fortissimo climax where we have the A section again, but not for long. We have then the B section, that's more genial idea, before we have a piano restatement of the A section to round off this beautiful second movement. The third movement, the scherzo, is one of the most raucous, boisterous dance movements Beethoven ever wrote. And like the Fourth Symphony, we have repetitions of the trio in this movement, making it more substantial than your classic ABA movement. Remember, the exact form of all these movements is in the description below. We begin with this great idea. We have these wonderful kind of ripples, like Mexican wave through the string section. And then eventually we get to this lovely idea on the oboe, based on that. With the flute in thirds below and or in sixths above. Just such rip-roaring stuff, this movement. Then we come into the trio, where we have the winds and the horns. basically the gist of the trio. We go back to the we have the trio again, and then sure enough, to finish this brilliant movement, we go back to this that wonderfully exciting scherzo, the A section, before we have a coda which just wants you to jump up on your feet. The finale, the Allegro con brio, is one of the most exhilarating pieces Beethoven ever wrote. It just crackles with energy and good fun and ebullience. Again, this movement definitely has a kind of folky feel to it. I believe actually the main melody was based on one of Beethoven's Irish folk settings. And the main tune in this sonata form movement, the first subject, goes like this. We have these arresting chords, and then we have those great chords. Such exciting music, isn't it? Then we have a transition like this, based on the first subject. Something like that anyway. That's the transition. Then we go into the second subject, which begins this rather furtive, shadowy figure. Etc. Then based on that idea, again that kind of Mexican wave effect going up and down the strings, which builds this raucous Codetta. Then the whole thing's repeated, the exposition, and we have the development, where that tune, the first subject, is treated to a minor key variant. And it's interesting in this piece to see the score. You know, it's full of double bar line repeats in the exposition, development and recapitulation, which again reinforces this idea of this movement being very much a folk dance. So yeah, the development's really just based on the first subject. And then we're back into A major for the etc. And then dum, 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 dum. Whatever it is. And then the second subject, as you'd expect. And then we're into the Codetta and the Coda. And there's not much to be said about the Coda. It just ends this amazing symphony in such an amazingly joyful and invigorating way. And if you see a great performance of this symphony, you'll be wanting to leap to your feet by the end of this great work. Check out on YouTube the performance by Carlos Kleiber with the Concertgebouw Orchestra, the live Beethoven 7, and the final movement is just out of this world. So thanks for watching this video. If this is your kind of thing, looking at classical music closely, please click like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. And this is my last video on the Beethoven symphonies, so please check out my videos also on the other 8. All the best, bye.